McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 5, Episode 16, The Magic Room. October 31st, 1921, continued. I stood in the haunted house, confronting my ghosts at last. The tall ghost had just threatened to lock me in their darkest cellar forever if I didn't return them to their bodies. I found this disappointing, as I had just given what I thought was a rather touching speech about moving on to the afterlife and how when we heal into new people, not the people we were before. I thought it rang with truth, and I was more than a little disappointed to hear the ghost ignore my philosophy and go straight to talking about chucking me in cellars. I was scared, of course, because I didn't want to end up in a cellar, but I was also confused. How were ghosts supposed to make me do anything? Then they all came towards me in a rush of light, a blur of transparent bodies, and I remembered that they could touch and move things if they really tried. This many of them could probably hurl me down the staircase. I yelled and dropped to my knees. I covered the back of my head with my hands. I waited for the worst. And then, suddenly, I heard two voices I knew very well. I stared at the carpet, my heart brimming with hope. It was impossible, wasn't it? But I distinctly heard Matthew, John, and Rupert shouting at the ghosts, in a fashion that was so very like them. "All right, that's it, back up, all of you." That was Rupert, of course. "My goodness, are you a bunch of monkeys? Be civilized. We are not throwing anyone in any cellars." The tall ghost moaned. "But I just said—" "Maud is a friend, and she has things to do," Matthew John said. "Renfield, you don't remember that because you've been stuck here too long. You're confused." "Yes," Rupert said, "we're new, and we say, let Maud go." I looked up. It was Rupert and Matthew John, just as ghosts. Seeing my face, Rupert waved. "Hello, Maud. How is the rest of me doing?" "Well, I think," I stammered. Then I pulled myself together. "But Wrath is in trouble. Matthew John, I need to know where the magic unusual is, who can multiply the power of spells. We're making a spell, but we need it to be more powerful." "Oh, he's in Kent," Matthew John said, and he rapidly gave me directions on how to get to the fellow's house. The tall ghost was looking rather furious that his only bargaining chip was gone. Matthew John had already given me what I needed. I felt very sorry for them, the ghosts. Their person would keep living, but they had to move on, ahead of time, into the afterlife. Then again, I refused to believe in an afterlife that isn't lovely. They will be fine. I felt a prickle in my heart, a reminder to say goodbye to the me's that had once been, who I do not need to get back, who I may lovingly thank and say farewell to. "Maud, don't worry about us," Rupert said. "We'll chat with the other ghosts. We'll look for you. We will look for your coming, and the coming of our bodies, and we will move on, as you said. It sounds good to me. I think really all of us ever wanted was the reassurance that our person is going to be okay." "Yes," I said. Matthew John waved. "Hurry up, Maud, and come back to tell us the tale." Oh, telling tales. I want to live forever, diary, and tell tales. I used some magic jelly to get to Kent, to travel to the home of this magic unusual. He was there, watering chrysanthemums. I explained the rush I was in, and he tutted and hurried and asked me if I was sure I wouldn't like a cup of tea to soothe my nerves, and I said no thank you, I'm really in rather a rush, and he must have been somewhat familiar with the magic, because he took the potion from me, cupped his hand over it, and suddenly the potion changed colour. His spell was inside. The power to multiply another spell. "Thank you," I said. "You have no idea how much good this might do." "You're welcome," he said. I left, hurrying with the potion in my pocket, when a huge blank space suddenly filled my mind. I felt myself being pulled somewhere, like something was dragging my feet backwards across the gravel path. I shook my head. "No, I'm not going." Then the feeling passed, but I was left with even more gaps in my memory. I had a hard time remembering what I was supposed to do. Then I remembered Wrath, and I hurried. I arrived back at the houseboat. I was the last one to get here, which was no surprise because I had had 2 stops to make instead of 1. Wrath was sitting up at the end of his bed, his features strange. "Hello, Maud," he said, but his voice was strangely creaky. "Let's go," I said. I wanted to stop. I wanted to tizzy and wonder, did we have everything? Was this foolish, reckless? But we simply did not have time. It was all so urgent. I was watching my deliverance or my destruction flit in front of my eyes. This was where the story ends. And I was about to watch it at last. But it was speeding, like a hawk striking down out of the sky. I drew an eye symbol on the houseboat door. Then, one by one, we touched it, all going together into the whisk-lit cave. We arrived in their magic room, the air singed with the smell of incense and metallic stone. The damp and the high ceilings and the strange magnetism in the air made me feel like I was made of something other than flesh and blood. Wrath strode into the center of the magic room, somehow sure of his feet, even though he could barely see. Then he reached back and snapped his fingers like a crab hand for the spell. "Hurry up," he said. "I'm dying, and I don't have all day." "Maud," Noble said, holding up the only potion that hadn't yet changed color. The only potion we hadn't put a power into. "Your turn." He handed me the small bottle, and I cupped my hand over the top. I shut my eyes. Felt everything quiver. Felt everything ache. "I wish the spell would break," I said. But it wasn't an active wish. It was just a waiting wish. A wish that I had put into the bottle. When I opened my eyes, the potion inside the bottle was bright blue, like the bright blue of my china eye, and I felt wistful for the beginning of everything. My power to break spells with a wish was now inside the bottle. "All together now," Octavia said cheerfully. She took each of the tiny potions and deftly poured them into a goblet. Then she handed the slurry of power and magic to Wrath. "Drink up," she said. "Ooh," Wrath said. "This is going to be fun." He guzzled the potion and then blinked, smacking his lips. He said, matter-of-factly, "I feel like a god." In spite of everything, the stress and the fear, I burst out laughing. Wrath handed back the cup, and he was about to begin uttering the spell, when the worst possible thing happened. The lights went out. "Damn!" Scotland shouted. "Can we do the spell somewhere else?" Noble said. "No," I said. "It's got to be the magic room. This is where they created the spells. This is where we have to break them." We all looked at each other, wondering what happened now. "I'm not leaving," Mara said. "No matter what happens, I'm going to stay with Wrath to see this through." "So am I said. "None of us are going anywhere," Octavia said. "We'll stand with you, Wrath. We promise." Wrath gulped and nodded. He stood perfectly still, as if he was waiting for something. "Wrath, break the spell," I said. "Now's your chance. Before they arrive." Wrath shook his head. "No. I want them to hear it." He couldn't have done his magic before they arrived anyway. Their footsteps echoed to the north just after that. They were coming. 1 minute, maybe. With that 1 minute of time, Wrath spoke to me. "Maud," he said, "I'm remembering something. I want you to know it. It helps me to know this, to understand. Do you know I never knew why they put me in that train car? I never knew. They kept asking me about John's spell. John had found a spell, an impossible, secret spell. He had died before he spoke to any of us, and yet the nature of the secret was that he had to tell one person. He had to. Does that make sense? There are many magic unusual secrets that are like that. Once you uncover a secret, it burns and hurts inside your blood until you tell. You must release the secret to another person, or at least write the secret down. Once the secret is shared, the pain stops. John would have had to have told someone. He had learned the secret over 3 hours before he died. They thought he told me, but he didn't. I don't know who he told or how, but I'm remembering some things that John said to me. that the night enthusiasts asked me. I think John had discovered this, the spell to summon the Whiskerlets. It was ancient, lost, impossible. John found it, for the night enthusiasts, and then he changed his mind. He chose not to tell them how to summon these ugly little demons. He told someone else. He died with his secret. But this moment, for me, the train car was about this, about them. I want to see them ended. Go on then, I whispered. They came. They entered the room in their dark cloaks and bird beaks, and the lights came back on again, eerie this time, and pale green. The Whiskerlets looked at us, their masks whirling left to right as they looked at each other in dismay. They made the same quick motions, like a flock of disturbed birds. One gurgled, then their gaze settled on Wrath, and that's when they howled and cowered, like they couldn't stand the sight of him. "He does not cover his eyes! An abomination! Give him a mask! Make him cover his eyes!" "Not nice, is it?" Wrath said. "What? You don't like to think about how creepy you are? Listen to me, all of you. I'm here, aren't I? Aren't I your worst fear? Aren't I what you have been trying to avoid? You tried to get rid of Maud because she broke a spell. One spell. She broke one spell with a wish, but you feared the result of it so much that you tried to wriggle her out of history. I am what you feared, aren't I? Maud let me out of my train car. I should not exist. Without her, I wouldn't exist. But Maud set me free, and here I am. "You were not destined to arrive for several weeks," a Whiskerlet croaked. "You probably wrote the date down wrong," Wrath said. "Here's the thing. I am damaged. I have made terrible mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes was thinking I wanted to join you when I was dead. But it all worked out all right in the end, and I don't have to be my mistakes. Only Whiskerlets can kill Whiskerlets. Only Whiskerlets can break Whiskerlet spells. But I think you'll find, for our intents and purposes, that I am a Whiskerlet. Maybe I'm already dead. Maybe I'm close enough. But I can break every spell you've ever made." "You do not have that level of magic," the Whiskerlets wheezed. "Yes, I do," Wrath said, "simply because I am not alone. There are many, many people in the world, many magic unusuals, and while we cannot do these things ourselves, I think you'll find that with Maud's magic and my Whiskerlet self, and a little help from a few others, I can do whatever I want." The Whiskerlets gurgled. They ducked. Wrath could have waited longer. He could have gloated, basked in their fear, kept talking, but he didn't do any of those things. He just lunged. He lifted his hands, stretched them to the ceiling, and shouted. This was the moment. This was it. I was in this moment too, my power being used by Wrath. Listen very carefully, Diary. We had gone to such lengths to make sure the following spells would work. Wrath cast them one after another, each one bursting on the ends of his fingers like sparklers. Red, green, blue. I had never seen magic so powerful that it lit up, that it had a light of its own. But he was making all of this true. We were. Listen. I wish to break every spell you've ever cast. You will no longer live forever. When one of you dies, they will not be replaced. You can no longer make new members. You will die out. You will stop here. I will not become a Whiskerlet. Ariana will not become a Whiskerlet. We seal your world. No one will ever be able to enter it again, no matter what magic they use. And last but not least, I seal these spells. They cannot be broken by anyone except a human. By the human power still left in me, I make these new spells impossible for a Whiskerlet to break. Here, Diary, I want to specify a very important thing. There is no unique magic unusual power for death. There were currently 12 Whiskelets and 1 Wrath. We had not advised him to try to kill them, simply because only Whiskelets can kill Whiskelets, and he would be fighting alone, weak, almost dying. I wanted them all dead, eternally dead, never to plague humanity again. But it was not Wrath's job to kill them. In trying, he would simply be killed. If it was possible for him to kill 1 or 2 before he died, they would still go on living as a group of 10, and they would still carry out their work. I think it is best to let them kill themselves. Let them grow so hungry for power, so closed off from our world, that they fight and kill amongst themselves. I wished, with all my heart, that we could simply end them. But for now, as humans, with limitations, this is what we did. We sealed their world. No one could ever find them by magic again. We could not trap them here. I do think they can still be summoned by uttering death to all mice. But the hope is this. Humanity will grow, will change, will learn. We will someday reach a point where we do not see other people as inferior to us, and the phrase death to all mice will be utterly forgotten. Since the Whiskelets cannot leave unless summoned, they will then be truly trapped. They will be forgotten, and one by one they will die. They will become extinct. I had a strange premonition then. I know human horrors aren't over yet. Are there new ones on my horizon? World events that will make us wonder how we could ever do this to one another. I don't think I will see the Whiskelets truly gone in my timeline. But after me, will they cease? We had done good work here. We had done what we could do. Wrath and Ariana were safe. Future human beings had also been spared this fate. The Whiskelets were trapped and would one day die out. It was what we could do. Wrath finished his glorious spell, and the Whiskelets gnashed their teeth and huddled forward. Any doubt we'd had that the spell had worked vanished. The ceiling began to fall. The cave world was shaking. The spells were tumbling. Power whisking out into a vacuum. Boulders crashed down, too close for comfort. "I think we undid more than we thought," Wrath said. Noble snatched my shoulder, his eyes blazing with urgency. "We have to go. Maud, now." "Right." I knelt and drew an eye symbol as fast as I could. Everyone huddled behind me, except Wrath. "Go," I said. Octavia touched the eye. Vanished. Scotland. Mara. She looked at me, and I just said, "I'll make sure he gets through." And she went, as if she knew that maybe things would go wrong, but that Wrath would want her to go. She had her fists clenched as she went. Then it was just Noble and me. Rocks were still crumbling. A landslide was starting. The noise was so much. "Wrath, you've got to come now," I screamed. "Why do you think you can leave?" Wrath yelled. "We just sealed this place off forever, no matter what magic gets used. You would all be trapped here eternally, too, if it wasn't for me. I haven't let the spell finish so that you can get out." "Oh. But that meant..." "Wrath," I said. "I can't leave you here. I can't leave you behind." "Maud," Wrath said, "someone has to stay and finish the spell. And you two had better get out of here because I am tired of holding open that last little crack of light. This world is sealing. Forever. You must get out." "Maud," Noble said, "let's go." "No," I said. Noble gently touched my arm. "Make sure she doesn't stay on the edge of life," Wrath shouted. "Make sure she finds the center of it." I didn't know if he was yelling to Noble about me, or to me about Mara. Noble knew I would never go. He made me go first, so he could follow. I was in a blur. I didn't want this to be the only way it worked. I didn't want this at all. But I knew Wrath, and I trusted him. He said he had to stay. He wanted me to go. Blindly and stumblingly, and with a sharp, sour ache running through my whole body, I touched the eye. I arrived in a nighttime meadow in 1921, where Scotland, Octavia, and Mara were already waiting. Noble arrived a split second after me. We had defeated the Whiskalets, but we had left wrath in the Whiskalet world. We hope you've enjoyed Season 5, Episode 16, The Magic Room, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawnshop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawnshop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren, all rights reserved. Thank you for continuing all this way with Maud's adventures. The Ghost Catchers is coming April 13th, and there is news on that, as well as fandom fun, if you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Meg Macaulay Inc. That's Inc, I-N-K. Please consider becoming a monthly supporter on Patreon. Or if you can't commit right now, please say thank you with a one-time donation. I now have Venmo, at Minerva Sweeney Wren. All links are in the description of this episode. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawnshop will conclude with our final episode, Season 5, Episode 17. If you want to know who did it, it was I.